Ladies and gentlemen, when we talk about our worth, many of us find it hard to truly grasp the magnitude of what we bring to the table, especially in relationships. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that what we offer doesn't matter, that maybe we're replaceable, or that the people in our lives can find what they need somewhere else. But here's the reality: they won't. When you're truly present in someone's life, when you invest your time, your care, and your heart, you're not just a face in the crowd. You become an anchor, a stabilizing force. And when that anchor is pulled away, the storm that follows is not easily calm. Think about it. What happens when someone who has supported, understood, and cared for you, really cared for you, steps out of your life? The absence isn't just physical. It's emotional, spiritual, and mental. They take a piece of your peace with them, and no matter how hard they try, they won't find that peace again. Not in another relationship, not in another friend, not in another experience. Because peace isn't something you can just find anywhere. It's something that comes from connection, from trust, from deep, meaningful bonds. It's crucial to understand this for your own self-worth. You might feel that the world keeps turning, that the person or people who've lost you are just going to move on and find their own peace, but the truth is, they'll never find it the way it was when they had you. People don't just lose a person when they lose you. They lose a reflection of their own inner peace. That balance you brought, the reassurance, the calm that was woven through your interactions, is something they can't replace. When you care for someone deeply, when you stand by them through their ups and downs, you become part of their foundation. You give them strength when they didn't know they needed it, and you show them parts of themselves they might have been too scared to face on their own. The connections we form with others are like threads that weave our lives together. And when that thread is cut, everything unravels a little bit. And it's true, they might go through the motions. They'll meet new people, have new experiences, but they'll always carry with them the absence of something they didn't realize was so vital until it was gone. It's not just about the conversations, the hugs, or the time spent together. It's about the way you make them feel about themselves. How often do we underestimate the impact of our presence on someone else's peace of mind? We all want to feel seen, understood, and valued. When we're lucky enough to have someone who provides that to us, who makes us feel like we're worth the effort, we begin to rely on that. It becomes a part of who we are. And when it's gone, we're left scrambling to find that sense of validation elsewhere. But it's never quite the same. So when someone loses you, they're not just losing a person. They're losing a piece of their own sense of self. They're losing someone who could look beyond the surface and see who they truly are, flaws and all, and love them anyway. And that kind of unconditional support is hard to come by. When you walk away, you're leaving behind a void that can't be easily filled by anyone else. The weight of your absence will linger, because they won't be able to recreate the trust and security you provided. This is not to say they won't move forward. Life moves on. We all keep going, one way or another. But the peace that was present when you were part of their world, that sense of calm you brought with you, is something they will search for but never truly find again. It's a reminder that the impact we have on others, even when we don't realize it, is profound. And no matter how many times they try to replace it, they'll always feel that gap, that loss, deep within them. Now, this isn't about vengeance or pride. This is about recognizing your worth. This is about understanding that when you leave behind more than just your time or your attention. You leave behind a reflection of something deeper, something lasting. People may try to replace you, but they won't ever replace the peace you brought. And that peace is a gift that can't be replicated or found anywhere else. And so, when you let go, when you decide to walk away, it's not just about the end of a chapter. It's about the beginning of a new journey for both you and them. You're stepping into a space where your peace will no longer be compromised, where your value is fully understood, not just by others, but by yourself. And while the person who loses you will never truly find that peace again, they'll have the opportunity, in time, to learn that true peace comes from within themselves, but that's a lesson they'll have to learn on their own. At the end of the day, they will realize that after losing you, the world may keep spinning, but it won't be the same. And that realization will stay with them long after you've gone. When we talk about the emotional impact of loss, it's often easy to focus on the immediate pain, the sting of the empty space, the quiet that follows when someone we care about is no longer around. We think about the moment when that person walks out of our lives, and the overwhelming sadness or anger that rushes in. But what people often fail to understand is that the emotional void left behind isn't something that can be easily filled. It's not just about missing someone's company, their touch, or their voice. It's about the deeper loss of peace that comes when someone who anchored you emotionally is no longer there. Let's pause for a moment and reflect on how we react when someone we've trusted or loved walks away. It's not just about the loss of a relationship. It's about the shift in our emotional landscape. You lose a sense of comfort, a sense of security. You lose someone who made you feel understood, who could see past your surface and knew your vulnerabilities. That's not something you can quickly replace. The person who leaves may not realize it, but in their absence, the chaos that starts to unfold in the person left behind can be profound. Think about the times when you've experienced the loss of someone important in your life. It's not simply the immediate sadness that gets to you, but the lingering sense of uncertainty that follows. The questions that keep you awake at night. What went wrong? Why wasn't I enough? Those aren't just questions about the other person, they're questions about yourself. And as those thoughts circle around, you begin to question your own value. You start to wonder if you'll ever find peace again, because after all, it was this person who made you feel at ease, who showed you kindness when you were unsure. Losing them shakes your world in ways you can't predict. And for the person who loses you, this chaos isn't something they can escape. It isn't a momentary discomfort that fades away with time. It's a deeper emotional unrest that follows them around, quietly shaping their daily life. They might find ways to distract themselves. They might meet new people, pursue different interests, or even convince themselves they're fine. But deep down, they will carry that sense of loss. It will echo in their quiet moments, in their relationships, in their attempts to find peace again. But here's the real kicker. They won't ever be able to replace what you brought to their life. You weren't just a part of their routine or their social circle. You were a source of emotional balance. You provided something that, without realizing it, they came to depend on. A kind of emotional grounding that let them breathe a little easier, face their challenges with a little more confidence, and feel more secure in who they were. Now, I'm not saying that people can't heal or adapt. Of course they can. We all can. Time passes, and wounds start to heal. But the reality is that the emotional turbulence left in the wake of losing someone who brought peace into your life never fully fades. Sure, they might move on, find new relationships, new sources of comfort, but nothing will ever quite replicate the way you made them feel. The emotional bond you had wasn't just a fleeting connection. It was part of their sense of self. And once it's gone, they have to rebuild that foundation, piece by piece. What's important to realize, though, is that this pain, this loss, can serve as a catalyst for change, for growth. Because ultimately, no one truly changes unless they're confronted with the consequences of their actions or their loss. So while they're feeling this emotional turbulence, they have an opportunity to reflect, to realize how much they depended on the peace you brought, and why they let it slip away. It's an uncomfortable truth that can't be ignored, and it forces them to think deeper about the dynamics they created, the choices they made, and how they affected others. But make no mistake, the emotional void is real. It's there, and it will continue to stir the pot until it's dealt with. For you, though, this emotional upheaval is a reminder of just how much you've given, how much your presence truly meant. And while they may not immediately realize the depth of their loss, in time they will. They will start to feel that absence. They will realize that the peace they once had, whether they recognized it at the time or not, was a gift that only you could provide. It wasn't something they could find elsewhere, not in the same way. And this realization, while painful, serves as a turning point for both of you. It challenges them to grow. It challenges you to embrace your own growth. Because when you walk away from a situation where you've been the emotional anchor, you're not just removing yourself, you're removing the imbalance. You're creating space for both of you to heal and find peace in your own ways, but on your own terms. They will never forget the emotional security you gave them. It will haunt them in their quiet moments, in their attempts to move forward, and in their struggles to find that same peace. And in the long run, they'll come to understand just how integral your presence was in their emotional life. Peace is something they'll have to find within themselves, but they will never forget that you were the one who gave them a glimpse of what it could feel like to truly be at ease. So, setting boundaries is often seen as something negative, something that creates distance or even conflict. But in reality, boundaries are a form of self-respect, and they are a critical part of maintaining your emotional well-being. When we talk about loss, when we talk about walking away from a relationship or a situation, we must understand that sometimes it's not the departure that's the problem. It's the lack of boundaries that causes the pain in the first place. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are lines that protect who we are, ensuring we don't lose ourselves in the process of trying to keep others comfortable. Now, when you walk away from someone or something that's been a part of your life, it's not just about the finality of leaving. It's about recognizing that you've reached a point where your peace has been disrupted, your emotional well-being has been compromised, and the only way to reclaim it is to set a firm boundary. This is not an easy decision to make. It's not easy to recognize that the person you've been trying to help, support, or love is not able to offer the same respect in return. It's not easy to face the fact that by sticking around and sacrificing your own needs, you're enabling an unhealthy dynamic. But, let's be clear, setting a boundary is not about punishment. It's about self-preservation. It's about acknowledging your own worth, your own needs, and your own right to peace. People often resist boundaries because they confuse them with rejection. They fear that setting boundaries will push people away or make them feel unloved. But in truth, boundaries are a form of love. They are a way of showing someone that you value both them and yourself. When you set a boundary, you're saying, I value this relationship, but I cannot let it cost me my peace. I can't keep giving parts of myself without feeling the same energy, love, and respect in return. That is not only a fair request, it is a necessary one. Because without boundaries, we lose sight of who we are. We start to live for others, for their happiness, for their comfort, and we forget that we are worthy of the same consideration. And here's the reality of it. When you set that boundary, when you choose to walk away, the person on the other end may not understand it right away. They might be angry, upset, or hurt. They might feel like they've been abandoned. But in truth, it's their own behavior, their lack of reciprocity, their inability to meet you halfway that has led to this moment. You're not leaving because you don't care. You're leaving because you care about your own well-being too much to keep sacrificing it for someone else. Think about it this way. When someone can't meet you halfway, when they can't respect your emotional needs or your boundaries, it's not a reflection of you. It's a reflection of them. And it's in that moment that you have to recognize that you can't keep pouring yourself into a relationship that drains you, especially when that relationship isn't offering anything back. You can't keep showing up for someone who doesn't show up for you. That's the hard truth. It's uncomfortable to walk away, but it's necessary for your own growth. Now, When you walk away, that person might try to guilt you into coming back, or they might try to make you feel responsible for their unhappiness. They might try to convince you that if you just gave a little more, if you just made a little more effort, everything would be fine. But here's the thing you need to remember. Your peace is not up for negotiation. And the minute you allow someone to manipulate you into thinking otherwise, you are betraying yourself. You are saying that their comfort is more important than your own. And that is not something anyone should ever be willing to sacrifice. Setting boundaries is empowering. It's not about giving up on people. It's about giving up on unhealthy dynamics. It's about saying, I am worthy of respect. I am worthy of love. I am worthy of peace. And when you do that, you not only protect yourself, but you also create space for healthier relationships. Relationships where both parties are equally invested, equally present, and equally respectful of each other's needs. And while it may feel like you're losing something in the moment, in reality you're gaining something far more important, your own sense of self. When you set a boundary, you are saying to the world, I am not willing to lose myself for the sake of someone else's happiness. I will not disappear just to make others feel comfortable. And this is a powerful stance to take. It's a stance of strength, of self-love, and of respect. Not only for yourself, but for the other person as well. Because in the end, you're teaching them that love doesn't come without respect. It doesn't come without mutual care. And it certainly doesn't come without boundaries. In the long run, when they realize that the relationship they once had with you has shifted, they may not fully understand why, but they will come to recognize the importance of what you brought into their life, the balance, the care, the emotional stability. And though they might not immediately recognize it, over time, they will understand that your peace was worth more than the chaos that surrounded them. They will realize that in losing you, they didn't just lose a person. They lost the peace that you brought, the clarity that came with knowing where they stood, and the respect that you so freely gave. And that, my friends, will be a lesson they will carry with them long after you're gone. When we talk about growth and healing, it's easy to assume that the journey is something linear. We think that once we've gone through the pain, once we've experienced the loss, we'll just magically find ourselves on the other side, stronger and better for it. But that's not how it works. Growth isn't always neat, it isn't always comfortable, and it's certainly not something we can rush. In fact, some of the most profound personal growth comes not from the moments of peace, but from the moments of turbulence, from the times when we've lost something or someone important. And while the process of healing can be messy and difficult, it's also a necessary part of our journey to becoming the person we are meant to be. When you walk away from someone or something that has been a part of your life for a long time, it may feel like everything is falling apart. It might feel like the ground is shifting beneath you, and there's no clear path forward. But in reality, this is where the real transformation begins. This moment of discomfort, this moment of loss, this is the opportunity for both you and the person left behind to grow. It's in these moments of hardship, when everything feels uncertain, that we are pushed to reflect, to evolve, and to come out stronger on the other side. You might think that walking away is a form of giving up, a sign that you're not committed, that you're abandoning something important. But in truth, it's an act of self-preservation and self-love. When you walk away, when you choose to leave behind something that no longer serves you, you are making space for yourself to heal. You're giving yourself the opportunity to rebuild your sense of self-worth, to reconnect with who you are, without the weight of unhealthy relationships dragging you down. The person who loses you may not understand this at first. They might see your departure as a form of rejection or abandonment. They might feel hurt, confused, or angry. And while that is entirely valid, the truth is that your decision to leave is not about them. It's about you. It's about reclaiming your peace, reclaiming your sense of self, and giving yourself the time and space to heal from whatever wounds have been caused. And what's incredible about this process is that while it may feel like you're stepping away from someone, in reality, you're stepping toward yourself. You're giving yourself the opportunity to become the person you were always meant to be, without the weight of someone else's needs or expectations pulling you in different directions. For the person who remains, your absence may be a wake-up call. It's a chance for them to reflect on their own behavior, their own choices, and the way they've treated you. It's an opportunity for them to realize that the peace they took for granted when you were there was not something that could be easily replaced. It's a lesson that can be painful, but it's also a valuable one. The loss of someone who has been a constant presence in their life, someone who has given them stability and support, forces them to reckon with their own shortcomings. It forces them to question why they allowed things to get to this point, why they didn't give as much as they took, and why they didn't value the peace you provided until it was too late. But even though they may not understand it right away, this period of loss is necessary for them too. It's necessary for their own growth. People don't change unless they are forced to confront the consequences of their actions. They don't change unless they face the reality that something they once took for granted is now gone, and they have to rebuild from scratch. The pain they feel, while difficult, is what will push them to evolve. It will push them to realize the importance of mutual respect, the importance of emotional balance, and the importance of investing in relationships that are built on trust, respect, and care. In the end, they will have to grow, just as you are growing, and they will have to learn how to live without the peace you once brought to their life. This process of growth is not easy for either of you. It's uncomfortable, it's messy, it's painful, but it's necessary. Because growth is not about avoiding pain. It's about facing it, learning from it, and using it as a catalyst for change. It's about using the pain loss as an opportunity to reevaluate who you are. You are shedding the old layers of yourself that no longer serve you, and you're making way for the new. And as difficult as that may be, it's the only way to truly heal and grow. For the person left behind, this process of growth can take time. They may not realize the value of your presence right away, but eventually they will come to understand that the peace they had when you were around was something they took for granted. They will realize that the absence of that peace is a wake-up call, one that forces them to reevaluate their choices and behaviors. And in time, they will grow, just as you have grown. But they will never forget the lesson that your absence taught them, the lesson that peace is something we cannot take for granted, and that the most important relationships in our lives are the ones that bring us balance, respect, and understanding. So, while the process of growth may be painful, it's also a process that leads to something far greater, a deeper understanding of who you are, what you need, and the kind of relationships that will help you flourish. When we think about the concept of peace, it's often easy to assume that peace is something that comes from the outside. We imagine that peace is something that is given to us by others or by the environment we find ourselves in. But here's the truth. Peace isn't something that can be handed to you. It's something that you have to create for yourself, within yourself. Peace is an internal state. And while relationships and experiences can certainly influence it, true peace only exists when you learn to cultivate it from the inside out. When you walk away from someone or something, it might feel like you've lost a part of yourself, or like you're walking into the unknown. You might feel uncertain, anxious, or even fearful. But what you're really doing in that moment is creating space for your own peace to flourish. You're choosing to protect your inner world, to shield yourself from the external chaos that no longer aligns with who you are or what you need. And that is one of the most powerful decisions you can make for yourself. We often think of peace as something passive, something that just happens when the noise stops. But true peace is an active choice. It's the choice to let go of what no longer serves you, to release the toxic patterns and relationships that drain your energy. It's the choice to prioritize your emotional well-being over everything else. And when you make that decision, when you choose to walk away from the things that don't contribute to your peace, you are reclaiming your power. You are saying that your peace is worth more than any drama, any chaos, any conflict. You are making a statement to the world that you refuse to let your happiness and stability be dependent on anyone else. The person who loses you might not immediately understand this. They might be upset, confused, or even angry. They might feel like they've been abandoned, or they might try to convince you to come back, to re-engage in the very dynamics that led to the breakdown in the first place. But here's the key. Your peace is not up for negotiation. The boundaries you've set, the decision you've made to walk away, are not about punishing anyone. They are about protecting what is most precious. Your inner peace. Peace is not about having no problems or challenges. Peace is about knowing that no matter what comes your way, you can handle it. It's about having the strength to face difficulties without losing your center, without losing your sense of self. When you allow someone to continually disrupt your peace, when you allow them to take more than they give, you start to lose that center. You start to question yourself, your worth, your sense of balance. But when you decide that enough is enough, when you choose to walk away from situations that drain you, you are taking control of your own peace. You are making the conscious decision to protect yourself from the chaos that doesn't belong in your life. But here's the thing, once you start prioritizing your own peace, once you start creating boundaries around what you will and won't tolerate, something remarkable happens. The people around you, those who truly respect you and value you, will begin to notice. They'll see the strength it takes to stand firm in your decisions, the courage it takes to protect your emotional well-being. And what they'll realize in time is that your peace is not something they can take for granted. They'll realize that you are no longer someone who can be manipulated, someone who can be walked all over. You are someone who knows their worth, who understands the value of their own emotional space. And for the person who loses you, this realization will come, though it might take time. They will feel the absence of the peace you brought, and they will understand, eventually, that the relationship they had with you was not just about companionship or comfort. It was about something much deeper. They will realize that your peace was a reflection of your self-respect, your emotional strength, and your ability to navigate the world with grace. And in losing you, they will learn a valuable lesson. That peace is something that must be cultivated and protected, not something that can be taken for granted or easily replaced. Now, let's be clear, this doesn't mean that the absence of someone who brought peace into your life is easy. It doesn't mean that the person who walks away from a relationship doesn't grieve or feel the loss. The pain of leaving can be real, the loneliness can be overwhelming. But even in the midst of that pain, even when everything feels uncertain, you are still creating space for peace to enter your life in a way it never could when you are stuck in a toxic cycle. You're allowing yourself the time and space to heal, to reconnect with your true self, and to rediscover the things that bring you true joy and fulfillment. True peace isn't found in avoiding conflict or running away from difficulty. True peace is found in the strength to face those challenges head-on, to acknowledge the pain, and to choose to rise above it. It's about knowing that Even in the toughest moments, you have the power to create the inner calm you need to move forward. And that's what makes your decision to walk away so powerful. You're not just walking away from a person or a situation, you're walking toward something better. You're walking toward your own peace, your own sense of self, and your own future. And in the end, that is the greatest gift you can give yourself. You can't put a price on peace. You can't trade it for anything. And once you've tasted what it feels like to live in alignment with your own inner peace, you'll never again allow anything or anyone to take that from you. Peace is yours to keep, and nothing or no one will ever be able to take it from you again. When you decide to walk away from someone or something, it's not just about leaving behind a person or a relationship. It's about letting go of the parts of yourself that you've been holding on to because you thought you needed them to survive. We all have these little pieces of ourselves that we keep hidden, parts that we protect and shield from the world, thinking they're too fragile or too vulnerable to expose. It's easy to forget who you are when you've been in a relationship or a situation that constantly requires you to bend, to adjust, to give up your peace for the sake of others. Over time, you begin to lose sight of your own needs and desires. You get so caught up in trying to make things work that you forget to check in with yourself. You forget to ask, what do I need? What do I want? What makes me happy? It can be heartbreakingly difficult to figure out what your own values are and how to figure out what you want. What makes you happy? Instead, you start focusing on what the other person needs, what they want, and how you can meet their expectations. And before you know it, you're no longer living for yourself, you're living for someone else. But here's the truth. When you lose yourself for the sake of another person, you're not helping them. You're only hurting yourself. You're not giving them anything valuable, because you're giving away the very thing that makes you whole. And when you finally walk away from a relationship or situation that demands you lose yourself, that's when the real healing begins. That's when you start to reclaim the pieces you thought you had to sacrifice. You start to remember who you were before all of this, before the compromises, before the emotional exhaustion, before you gave up your sense of self. It's important to understand that walking away is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It takes an immense amount of courage to walk away from something that once felt like home, something that you've invested time, energy, and love into. But it's also a recognition that you deserve more. You deserve to show up as your full, authentic self. And that means you can't keep giving parts of yourself away without expecting to feel lost, without expecting to feel empty. Walking away allows you to step back into your own life, to put yourself first again, and to stop sacrificing who you are in the name of others' comfort. And let's be clear, when you walk away, it doesn't mean you're giving up on that person. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself to stop sacrificing your peace, your happiness, and your well-being. Because in the end, if you keep losing pieces of yourself, there's nothing left to give. There's no room for growth, no room for love, no room for peace. And that's what walking away ultimately gives you. The opportunity to rebuild. It gives you the space to reconnect with yourself, to rediscover the passions and desires that might have been buried beneath the weight of everything else. It allows you to heal, to find your strength again, and to emerge as the person you were always meant to be. The person left behind might not understand this at first. They might not immediately see why you made the decision to walk away. And they might try to convince you to come back. But here's the reality. They won't truly understand the depth of your decision until they see the transformation that follows. When you start to reclaim your peace, your joy, and your sense of self, it will be undeniable. People will see the difference in you. They will see the way you carry yourself, the way you no longer tolerate what you once tolerated, the way you stand in your own power. And that in itself will be the most powerful message you can send. It won't be about words, it will be about your actions, about the way you choose to live your life moving forward. Walking away is not just about leaving behind what no longer serves you. It's about creating space for what is meant for you. It's about stepping into your future with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that you are worthy of everything you've been denying yourself. You are worthy of love that doesn't require you to shrink or lose yourself. You are worthy of peace that doesn't come at the cost of your emotional well-being. And when you make the decision to walk away, you are telling yourself that you believe that. You are telling yourself that you are enough as you are, without needing to prove anything to anyone. You are telling yourself that you deserve a life that reflects your worth, a life that aligns with your values and your dreams. And even though walking away is hard, even though it comes with pain and uncertainty, it is one of the most empowering decisions you can make. It's a decision that says, I am ready to reclaim my life. I am ready to take back the pieces of myself that I thought I had to give away. It's a decision that honors your past, but it's also a decision that opens the door to your future. A future where you are whole, where you are at peace, and where you are fully aligned with who you truly are. And no matter what happens after you walk away, one thing will always remain true. You will never regret the moment you chose yourself. Because when you choose yourself, you choose your happiness, you choose your peace, you choose your future. And that, my friends, is worth everything.